Hello guys and
Nee,
welcome.
mach nochmal neu, ich hab mir gerade in der Nase gebohrt.
Hey guys and welcome, and that was an inside joke because Jonas. Anyway, welcome to the several
14th?
15th.
No. My guess is 14.
You see, the reason why we can't remember is that
It's
we
been a long
haven't
time.
talked to you in right about forever, and now I think it's been before your internship even that we
So
did
that
our
was
last
3
podcast.
months of an internship.
Yeah. So it's been at least 3 months that we haven't talked to humans about what we're doing here. It's not entirely true, but
We get a newsletter featuring like 100,000.
yeah,
More than that.
130 yeah, fair
Different
enough.
story.
No, but like honestly, I wasn't sure whether we were still doing the podcast ever again.
But we bought the microphone.
We
So we cannot
used
not
it once.
continue.
No, so we bought Jonas a microphone, so now he should sound great again. Funny enough, we're now not using that microphone to record this podcast because we're sitting here on this gorgeous couch off the Pionier Garage, which is the co-working space where we've been doing a lot of the work we've been doing, and now we're using some cheapo microphone on top of our camera.
Thanks to the Pionier Garage, shout out for lending us their cheap microphone and the beautiful co-working space.
Yes, well, yeah. Anyway, what are we going to talk about today, Jonas? You just asked me that before we started, and I'm not really sure. I think what we can do is catch people up on what we've been doing, and I think I'm not even sure whether the whole rebuild Maimon decision on our end had been made the last time we made the podcast.
Well, we knew that we had to do a major overhaul anyways because AngularJS is no longer supported after the end of this year. AngularJS being like something with programming. And so we had to build it anyways, but I think we didn't quite know that rebuilding it meant rethinking it.
Yeah, so we went from knowing that we have to do a lot of changing to knowing, and also knowing that we wanted to like redesign some of the processes, which were a little bit questionable. But obviously, the deeper we got into it, the more we realized that it's probably easiest to just start from scratch, essentially.
You see, it's like when you clean your house and you start by just changing the towel in
And
the
we decided to
bathroom.
move out.
and you realize, okay, no, I should clean this. I wouldn't go as far as, you start to realize you have to move out. But you clean here and clean there, and suddenly you have whatever, the mop in your hand, and you realize, okay, now I might as well clean up.
Next moment, you have a drill in your hand. You're taking it apart the shelf. You've ordered a new kitchen.
You're rebuilding the entire house.
And you rebuild the entire house. So we're rebuilding the entire house, and the beginning of it was really, really tough. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I mean,
It's tough.
because it wasn't me who was involved as much, probably.
Yes, that's true. So in the beginning, it was mostly Alex Dietz and myself doing that little bit of work that has been going on, and yeah, I mean, if we're saying we're rebuilding it from scratch, is that we're keeping essentially the vast majority of features are staying within the app.
The fundamentals will stay. We
Yeah.
will keep the same database and backend,
Yeah.
mostly. What's going to change is kind of like the facade, I dare to say.
A lot of the facade, I mean, fundamentally, the way Maimon works is still going to be the same.
Yes.
However, the way you get to how things are working, or like some of the processes for you to make those things happen that already are going on, are going to be changing a little bit.
Can you give an example, Alex?
I think one of the most interesting examples is the organize section. So for you, if you have organized a conference with Maimon, as soon as you set up a conference, you can go into an organized view of that conference, and that gives you a whole new menu where you can configure applications and make assignments and all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And that has been so far detached entirely from the rest of the conference's page and the platform. And now what we're doing is, in a way, it is similar to a Facebook page where you see the page, but on the left side you have this larger bar of navigation. I want to say we're going to be a lot more clean and compact than what you have managing a Facebook page. But in a way, that's how you can imagine it, and you can really also go ahead and edit your conference page from the front, right, looking at it. You know, we're going to have edit buttons there, which is going to make things a lot more intuitive as well, and it's going to allow you to really make a change and see what it looks out like afterwards.
I think, that was one of the things we came across every so often, was that we found a setting where it's like, plug in a text here, and I really had to think of like, where is that going to display?
Wait, is that text going to show up? We couldn't figure it out. So we want to make that a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that also means, obviously, I think one big step is going to be. Oh gosh, my belly's showing a bit here. We've had
wonderful gnocchi.
We had a wonderful gnocchi. Anyway, so showing actually the application process, so what that's going to look like for delegates. I think it's going to be really key to provide that as just a dummy version of that for organizers, so they can sort of click through it and see what that's like for delegates. So this is like one theme I think that we're gonna have in place. We've been working, especially last 48 hours, a lot on the payment system.
Yeah, and I think it's not just, again, this with the payment is not just the facade. We really thought through what is it, that where, payments are made, and which services do we offer, and which services is it that we really have to charge for. And I can say that we had a big discussion about, free conferences. So far, free conferences still had to pay a fee.
Yeah.
And personally, I've always thought, if they're free, what are they going to pay the fee with?
Yeah.
Didn't make much sense to me. And so kind of like what we have to charge for and how much we're going to charge is a big discussion that we're having right now.
Yeah.
I think it's not a discussion where we're totally final yet. By far not.
We haven't really started even.
So we'll definitely share some insights once we have any. Which is not the case yet. So I'm excited what's happening.
Yeah. No, but even setting it up, I think this is what I've been building yesterday a lot.
Yes.
And I mean, I've been building it in terms of writing the code, but a lot of the ideas come from you there. So, and
the verification,
adding payment, all sorts of things that you had to set up in order to be able to receive payments. I think we've simplified that a lot, made it a lot more transparent and understandable for you, because I think we were hugely lacking in that so far.
I mean, we barely understood it, Alex. The other day we were talking about an hour with the support hotline from our payment provider just to understand what really matters, what's crucial, and with payments, we're talking not just about some Google forms, but we're talking about international banking transfers, super highly regulated field, and in the end, it's things I always say, things that we as MUNers might write into our resolution or something, into a draft resolution. This stuff's real. It's called Know Your Customer, and so banks really have to know who's transferring which money from where to whom and what for and stuff. So
No, I think this. I think we can talk a little bit more about this in maybe our discussions with Stripe.
Yes.
And what those were about. Maybe it's interesting to some people, because obviously we're not doing all of that ourselves. It doesn't all run through our bank account. It actually, a lot of what we're doing is going through a payment provider that is Stripe.
Actually, just because it's something I didn't know before. If you as a delegate register for a conference and you transfer your delegate fee, that fee is at no second ever on our bank accounts, because we're not legally allowed to have this money, else we would need a banking license. So this money is just moved instantly from your bank account as a delegate to the one from the organizers.
Not instantly, it goes into sort of a depot and then. But it's never with us. That depot is not with us.
No, that depot is not with us. So this is where a lot of I think credibility is arising from.
Yeah, and I think what's also important, and I think that hasn't really been clear enough, that we are working with Stripe as a payment provider, and that a lot of what's happening is is detached from us. So if you see there is like you have a certain balance within your account, quote unquote, and when payouts are happening, it kind of looks like all is managed by us. But truly, we're just showing the data that we're getting from Stripe.
Yep.
And then actually everything that's happening is just happening on the Stripe side. So when you're setting up your conference and payments for your conference, if you're living in a country that supports Stripe, which is most Western countries and a lot of others as well, but countries like Israel, for example, it's not available there.
Yep.
Where was it going to go?
You were talking about Stripe and where the money goes and
Yeah.
the payment provider. It's not.
Anyway, yes. So when you fill out the form to accept payments, that form is not for us to have your data. It's because through that you're essentially creating an account for your conference with Stripe, and that's why you have to all sorts of verifications. And that verification is actually not with us; it's with Stripe.
Right.
We're just sort of making that possible. So we want to make that a lot more clear. And then that verification process is where you had a lot of conversations with conference organizers who were frustrated because they had to provide like utility bills of their company and all sorts of things.
And we figured that a lot of it is not necessarily at any stage, and so we took this now a lot more granular, so that it's a lot easier and faster for people, for organizers to set up their system, and also on the other hand, a lot more clear in terms of what's the expectations and how to get help from us, because I think. If anywhere, then this is the point where support and just being there, being available, being a helping hand and giving some guidance is the most crucial thing.
Yeah.
So in case you're setting up your payment system in Maimon, call me. I'm always happy to help. I guess I don't want to say I've done it all. I think there's still some adventures, but
so
I feel confident.
One of the things I want to talk about here a little bit, I don't know if this is at all interesting, but let's assume it is, is the whole company registration versus individual registration. I think this is going to be a big change that people who use the system in the future and who've used it in the past are going to see. And we really thought about how can we make that account registration with Stripe as easy as possible for you as an organizer. And essentially, when you're creating an account with Stripe, one of the options we looked at actually was just using an onboarding process by Stripe entirely, and then we sort of got deeper into it, but we couldn't customize that as far as we wanted to. And one of the customization points we wanted to address was the option to select what type of entity you are. And within Stripe, you can select whether you're an organizer, whether you're Damn boy. Anyway, you can select whether you're a company, an individual, or a non-profit. A non-profit is, however, only a legal entity within the United States. So that's not an option that's available in Germany, for example, where we are right now.
I remember trying to verify a society from the UK. They were registered with the Treasury Board or something, what it's called in the UK. They had all the documents and papers, and the papers were just rejected all the time. They called me, I couldn't tell at first glance, so I called them Stripe people, and together we got it sorted. But again, like NGO, we talked to Stripe and asked, what's the benefit of it? And what's the risks? What's the responsibilities? What's the duties? And it turns out that essentially they said there are no rights and responsibilities that an individual carries with that. And so that was a huge relief.
Yeah, and especially because what's happening at the moment in Maimon, if you're opting to register as an association or a club or whatever, it makes you register, if you think of it in Stripe terms, as a company, as a business. And obviously, if you're just a loosely allotted group of people within your university, call yourself a club, call yourself a society even, you're not a business. And you're not going to be able to verify
business registration
like a business would be able to. So this is, and that makes it obviously quite difficult then to register as a business. You have to provide a lot more information. And because you register formally in Stripe terms as a business, Stripe also expects you to fulfill certain requirements a business would have. So a business having utility bills, easy. Yeah. A business having a VAT number. Yeah. It's not mandatory, but all sorts of things like this. And then obviously as a society you get into trouble. So what our thought process was like, and so this is not final yet. We have to sort of verify that, maybe talk to Mats and Robin about it.
Yes, absolutely.
Before we obviously make this happen. But what if we just force everybody, and maybe force is the wrong word, but if we just default everybody, and, well, we force people, we don't give any other options, to register as an individual. And it's really just about having a contact person, and to make sure that a real person is behind that process. And it's just not like a fake registration. This is all that it's about. There's no liability issues, nothing like that. So if you're just forcing people to register as an individual, to keep it as easy as possible, because identity verification, which is sort of the second step of verification within Stripe, you might have to upload an ID or a picture of your ID or your passport. And I think that's feasible. Third step, obviously, is like address verification, where you have to get some more interesting documents. But it's still, I think, it's a lot more straightforward, and you don't have to bother with your society and stuff. And if we make that transparent as much as possible, I think it's just going to streamline the process a lot. I'm sorry, this was probably the most boring narrative of all, but maybe it helps you understand a little bit more how Maimon works.
There's one thing, Alex, I would still want to talk about.
Yes.
We mentioned that Israel is not a place where the Stripe marketplace is available. However, we do have a solution. It's not like countries that are not part of this, that are not Stripe territories are excluded. What's our solution for that?
Well, it's a solution that allows you to opt out of using the Maimon payment system, or if you're just living in a country that doesn't support Stripe through our Stripe type of system, then you default to that non-Stripe, non-Maimon payment system. So even if you live in a country that supports Stripe, like Germany, you could opt out.
Yes.
And we've seen that. So with the way Robin and Matt, they've set up the system, you couldn't really opt out.
Right.
But you have found some people who are trying to circumvent the system because they just wanted to receive bank transfers. Which
is, I have to say, a fair claim. If they want to receive it as a direct bank transfer, let them be. But here's the thing. If the Maimon page suggests to the delegates that they can pay directly by credit card through the Maimon payment system, and then they fail to, and then later they get an email that they should please make a bank transfer, then it all becomes a bit icky, it becomes less transparent, and it becomes quite a lot of service work for us to explain to these delegates what happened and where they stand and all these things. And so we thought, why not integrate them into this dedicated process?
Yeah. And the second problem obviously is that they're not paying payment processing fees or sort of platform fees, which allow us to keep the platform alive. And that obviously is also a negative. So now
if I may interrupt, while these are the cases where we have the highest time invest in terms of customer service.
Exactly. So this is a massive issue. So what we're now allowing you to do is we allow you to legalize that essentially, or we just keep
formalize it.
Yeah, we formalize it in countries where even Stripe Maimon payment system will be possible. So you can opt out of our Maimon payment system and just plug in your own PayPal dev account thingy, or you can plug in your own Stripe account if you have that externally, and you can also enter your bank account information so delegates can just transfer you the money. That does obviously have the massive negative effect that we don't automatically register who has paid and who hasn't. So you as an organizer will have to go to your bank through your bank statements and see which delegate has paid, and that's a lot more hassle for you. but obviously if that's how you want to do it, you can.
With the PayPal or your own Stripe account, though, it checks it automatically. This is
Oh yeah, right.
this is like semi-linked.
Yeah.
So it's not going through a platform. Nevertheless, it does check the applications as paid.
Yeah. So this is different. Yeah. So with that, we're also obviously still we still have to make some sort of platform fees. And the way it's run previously is that you had to make an upfront payment to Maimon to unlock all of this,
Which is so inflexible.
it's a bit difficult. So what we're trying to employ now is a system where as soon as you accept a delegate's application, a week later or like within a week, we're gonna bill you a certain share of the delegate fees. Now, how much that's gonna be, we don't know yet. Obviously, we can't just take the same amount that we would of the normal payments in the Maimon payment system, because there we know a delegate is going to pay. If we bill you on acceptance, some delegates are not going to pay their fees, so we have to find a sort of middle ground there.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit tricky to really get the pricing right there. But yeah, so this has been going on. We've also, I think, this week rebuilt the whole conference list and sort of where you search for a conference.
Hold on, let's make a short, thematic cut here so people, like this, we're now starting a different topic. We talked about finance and financial settings for quite a bit now. We're now talking about the place where you as a delegate start to research your conferences in this, I think it's called Discover. This is, where you find the conference list, the conference map, the conference calendar. With that introduction, Alex, what happened to the conference list?
We wanted to leanify it a lot, make it a lot more easy to use, more direct. And so what happened so far is that you click on Discover and then you get to the highlights page, which is where you get sort of a card view of all the conferences happening. You get some highlighted conference who we support in a special kind of way, who organizers might even have paid for those conferences to be highlighted in a special kind of way. You could then filter that and go to different tabs for different continents, and you had those like 3 navigation bars on top, which it looked messy, obviously, and then all the colors obviously didn't help it. And then you could go to the full Indian list, which is where I usually went to look for my conferences. I think you went more for the calendar views.
I love the calendar view.
You love the
calendar? Not from a design perspective, but from a thought and practicality way, I love it.
Yeah. So that was a thing, and then there was also map view where you could like sort of look on a map. Anyway, we've tried to really make the way to get to the conferences that might be interesting for you a lot shorter.
Yep.
And really put in your face what's most interesting to you, and we're trying to use some sort of clever ways to really tailor what you're seeing to what you want to see. So one thing that we're essentially doing is we're throwing you directly onto the list view. We're giving you much improved and much advanced filtering options, so that you really you can narrow the list down to something that's going to be interesting to you, and you can just look for a special month, a specific month, or filter by continent, and
only online conferences, or only high school, or only college.
Yeah, and you don't have to like go into weird drop-down menus for that. It's just directly buttons very visible on the left side there. Search bar obviously is still in place. So that's one thing, one part of it. And then you have the list, which we obviously try and make a little bit easier to explore as well. And then on top of the list, you're going to have the highlights of conferences. So those are going to be still in card view, but we're going to try and use essentially sort of rough geographical data that we get from just accessing any device. Whenever you sign in or go to any website, we can get some geographical data from you. That obviously is not very accurate, but it is accurate enough for us to predict which continent you're on. And using that information, we can then give you the special dedicated continent highlights for your own continent. Obviously, global highlights are going to be spread across everybody in the world. But that way, we can tailor things for you, give you the highlights, give you the list directly, and then obviously we're going to, long term or medium term, I want to say, give you also the option to switch back to the calendar view and the map view. But both of those are going to have to be redesigned because
they don't work, right? Like, I mean, they work technically, but not visually.
Well. Yeah, I mean, we want to make whatever you get out of Maimon easy enough to use and a pleasure to use and a great feature. And we don't want to put it out there if it's not satisfying to us or just good enough. And that is why some features, maybe once we launch in hopefully fall with this new version, might be missing. Some features maybe we may even have just straight up scrapped or moved to the bin.
Well, let's walk the talk. I mean, let us know which features you love, which ones you might miss, which ones you might add, which ones you name it. For us, again, this is such a highly interactive thing, and especially if you would be find some time towards for maybe to go with us, to talk with us over the current thing, kind of like a beta tester, that would be awesome as well. Yeah?
And I mean, to be fair, like, we're not scrapping a lot of things.
No, just some very niche things where we identified from statistics, seeing that they were used
literally not anybody.
There was literally features that no one has ever used.
Well, like 5 people, like 5 years ago.
Okay.
With the custom statistics.
Fine. Yeah. Call us if you ever used the custom statistics of Maimon.
Oh, God.
But chances are no one's going to reach out.
Yeah, probably not. So, one thing, especially now that you talked about people reaching out and stuff like that, one point that we've reached out over was assignments and application management. Mm-hmm. And that is something that we started working on today in a more dedicated sort of capacity. And we still sort of started building the first prototype of which. And the main idea for that was sort of how do you even manage applications. And I feel like in the old Maimon, or like the current Maimon, there was no really clear way of how should I manage my assignments.
Okay, Alex. Again, let's just make a shortcut here. We're now moving away from the delegate perspective back into the organizer perspective. Again, into this organizer, I'm gonna call it the conference backend or something.
Yeah.
And as an organizer, I now have all the applications for the different countries and committees, and I now want to see who's gonna get which assignment, and this has to happen somehow, ideally in a structured, form.
Efficient kind of way as well.
As Germans, this has to be
efficient. This has to be efficient. No, so I have never actually myself organized a conference using Maimon. Mm-hmm. But then, as we started looking at Maimon more closely, then what really jumps in your face is the country matrix.
Yes.
Which is like a massive grid, listing all the committees and the countries, and then if you can assign essentially slots through there, like you click on like a slot which like matches country and committee, and then if somebody's interested in that you get like a pop-up or something and you can assign that to that person. Especially larger conferences, it's hard to get an overview, and some countries are in some committees, some are not. It's really difficult, so that they didn't really seem to be a really great way to assign people. Then you also had a list of delegates, just a straight up list, mm-hmm. But there was also no really obvious way of assigning. Yes, there's an assign button, and you can click that, and then there's a popover, but then you don't even I think you have to go to a different tab to get like the preferences.
It's a lot of clicks.
It's a lot of clicks, and it just didn't feel like that's
the best way it can be.
The best way it can be, or like I didn't even feel like that was the way it was intended for me to assign somebody. Like, it's sort of like, yes, I can do it through here, but should I? and I felt there was no really obvious way for me to do it. So that was a big focus of ours, and then we for a while ago we've talked to a couple of people. So especially I talked to Egon from SGMon, who's used my one extensively. I've talked also to Finn for a longer little stint there, and I've also I don't know, I don't even remember who it was else. Anyway, I've talked to a couple of people, and I've also thought about myself how I used to do assignments, right? Because usually the way it works is that you get a list of delegates, and that's when delegate X has a certain number of preferences, and then you look at, all right, can I give him preference number 1, or do I want to give him number 1, and then I do it or I don't?
Yeah.
Right. Then I go preference number 2, or he's already assigned and I don't care about him anymore, or her. So this is fundamentally two philosophies about application management.
Right. So we have on the one hand the view where we have the applications of the people. We call it the applicants kind of view, just internally now today. And then on the other hand, we have kind of we call it the seat view, because we imagine it like a room with empty seats where it has the flags on it, and you can kind of like seat people.
And when you're saying view,
it's view like
a perspective. It doesn't mean like we're building two different views.
Absolutely, it's perspectives. And it's two different kind of perspectives, philosophies, kind of like where you start from. You can start with the people and kind of like assign them to chairs, or chairs not being the chairperson but like the seats kind of, or you can take the seats and go one seat to the next and see if there's people that want to have that seat. Right.
So the problem with the seat perspective is that you're going to have a lot of seats, and people are not going to be interested in all of them.
And you're going to have more seats than you have people usually.
Exactly. And the thing is, exactly. So that's at least how you start. Right.
And so, and which would mean that you would spend a lot more time if you were to kind of like allocate the seats.
Yeah. Now, so if we use the committee matrix as basis, we would essentially have to go through the entirety of the matrix from bottom to top and make sure that at no point we have anybody left who's still interested in being assigned in any of those spots. Which is obviously, you have to go through this massive matrix. There's a lot of spots which are maybe not really used by, or like you have seats that nobody's interested in, or seats which don't exist within your matrix, or so there's a lot of inefficiencies being lost. And from how I usually like to think that I used to go about assigning people in a few conferences I organized, and also from what Finn told me and the others told me, is that they have a new list of applicants, right? Maybe every week they go through it, or they have like 2 or 3 points or waves of assignments. And they go through a list and they assign everybody, and then when everybody's assigned, they're like finished. And then they go maybe back to the committee's view to see how full or empty the committees are. But that means that the committee matrix is mostly just a thing that's like nice to look at.
It's like a nice thought concept.
Yes. And it's something that you end up creating for your conference if you don't use Maimon, essentially. Because you have to somehow keep an overview where we have that overview, that community matrix exists essentially, but it is within our database, and we now can, however, just go ahead and present the information to you in a way that's much more usable. Long story, short result, I think the way we're building it now is that we're going from sort of the delegate perspective, where we're looking at, what are those preferences? Can we give them or her those preferences? And if not, if you don't want to give him or her any of those preferences, or none of them are available, you can just go and assign him or her to like whatever you like. So that's like an extra option. And in the way I'm imagining that now to work is that you just sit down, have your list of applicants, it's tailored to that. You immediately get all the information you need to assign that delegate, and you don't have to click through and to finally get to the assignment thing. And you can just go through, throw through your assignments, make those happen, be at lunch quicker, have your delegates get their information quicker, and Yeah.
Just have a leaner process overall.
Yeah.
Just and again, it's kind of tying in nicely with this idea of, you know, allowing you to organize your event, you know, easier, faster potentially, and giving you that extra hour as an organizer to get a better speaker, to get another sponsor or supporter, and you know, find more delegates to give you back that extra hour that you lose in these inefficient processes right now very often, especially when you have you know, small teams, when people have to write exams during the, you know, preparation phase, all these things, it's normal. And
now, and I think honestly, like, so I've seen sort of what we've sort of started sketching there earlier, and honestly, I feel really, really excited about it.
Like I want to see that.
When I was sitting there writing it, I in the end I got tired because it's also late enough now.
Yeah.
But I got really excited because that's not just a new way of presenting information. It's really, really rethinking the process.
Right.
And really giving you as a user, maybe somebody who's new to Maiman, a much, much, much more straightforward and easy way and quicker way to do your business and to get your conference organized.
Right.
And there's not at all gonna be the excuse anymore, like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna have people doing it for me," like, because it's so much easier that
well, I mean,
it's a no-brainer, really.
The challenge was and is that organizing a conference with Maiman is easier than using a Google what's it called,
Spreadsheet.
Google Forms or Google
yeah.
spreadsheet and stuff. And I'm confident to say with what's coming there, it surely is. It's saving you a hell lot of time.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, not only in the first run doing it, but also in usually like when you have the Google spreadsheets. In my experience, it's always like double checking everything, and you know, finding information takes a lot longer. And so I'm convinced that with what's coming there, it just gives you extra hours.
Yeah.
Of time, not of work.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of work, but I'm honestly quite excited about what can come out the other end. Like,
I feel like that time that organizers are going to have is what we invest now.
yeah, yeah, it's true. No, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing it, and I hope it's all going to come together. And one thought I had earlier was that I think we're still going to have to guide people really well, and we're going to have to put some more thought into how they can get to the point of opening applications.
Yes.
Because I think that's one of the issues at the moment, that you can open applications without having your payments set up properly.
That's right.
How is that possible? That should not be possible. And I want to put all those safeguards into place for what we're rebuilding now, so that you can only finally toggle those applications on when everything's in place.
So there's no misconceptions. There's no, oh, this doesn't work. There's no you know, question marks. It's just straightforward, and it's working as you want it to.
Yeah. For that though, to work well, we have to really make sure we let people know what they have yet to do to get to a point where they can open applications.
That's right.
And I don't know, maybe we can build it into the dashboard page or somewhere where we have like sort of this checklist almost.
The dashboard would be a nice place for this, maybe.
Yeah. To make sure that this can all go through. And yeah, maybe this could be it. Yeah. And I'm kind of thinking, so for the payment thing, we built like a couple of indicators.
That's right.
Which sort of go red or green if things are set up properly or not, and maybe like a sort of like process like that for what you have to do to get applications running. But ideally, obviously, you wouldn't have to do too much.
Let's see what's coming out there. Definitely, I think we're both very excited for what's to come, what's going to happen, how Maiman is going to look like even internally for us in a week. Yeah. I can say that a week ago, it has looked dramatically different.
Yeah.
So
it's been a good week.
It's been a terrific week, and
I'm kind of thinking about whether we should, like, how long we should go tonight. I'm quite tired now, but like If I have Red Bull,
Let's see what's gonna come.
I don't know, man.
Let's call this a podcast for today, I guess,
Call it
at least.
podcast.
And let's see what else is to happen and come.
How long do you reckon we talked?
I reckon this, we didn't start, but I reckon it's like 25 minutes.
I hope it recorded. Let's see. Oh god, 40 minutes.
Holy cow.
That's a long one. Anyway, see you.